So we've had 4 sermons now in this book of Ecclesiastes, and we've gone through 2.5 chapters already. We're just now finishing out this second chapter. We'll be finished in that. We're moving on to chapter 3 next time. And we've heard so far how Solomon, the wisest and the wealthiest king of his time, decided, and that's key to this whole book, he decided to abandon God, abandon the calling on his life, abandon all his kingly plentifulness that God had given him in terms of his wisdom and his goods and his wealth, and chase after things in his own strength, in his own questioning, in his own mind. He wasn't satisfied with the things that God had given him. They didn't seem to answer his questions. And so he started delving into the world. And as a result of his direct and his purposeful intent to interrogate everything under the sun, that was worldly knowledge and wisdom, to test his heart with participating in varied and endless pleasures, efforts to gain everything that his eyes wanted or that his heart gazed after. He decides to sit down and write this sermon that we're going through. He decides that actually he's found out through his extravagant living that everything he's gone through is vanity, and he wants his hearers there to know about it, and he wants you and me to hear about the same thing here today. So as we close out chapter 2, we read and we hear this preacher making some very strong statements about the life that is lived. And the realization of the vanity has made him feel in regards to that life. And he says these 3 things. Therefore, I hated all my life. Ecclesiastes 2 verse 17. Therefore, he says, therefore, I hated all my labor. Ecclesiastes 2 verse 18. And then he said, therefore, I turned all my heart and despaired. Ecclesiastes 2 verse 20. After just 2.5 chapters, we're hearing how this lifestyle has led him to a place of utter despair. You can, again, it's another one of those passages you can read it as you can feel it as you're reading it. What absolute despair this man is in. Now, if we examine this under the light of what we've already learned and what we already know about Solomon, there may be some people who scrunch their eyes up in disbelief about what he's actually saying here. Some may even look on with disdain about what he's saying. You know, this is a man who's got everything. He's a king. He's got his kingdom. He's got houses that he's been able to build. He's got pools. He's got servants. He's got cattle. He's got animals. He's got plenty. He's got wives. He's got wisdom. He's got knowledge. In fact, this guy, he wants for nothing. Nothing at all. We've already heard and said again today that whatever his eyes saw, or whatever his heart desired after, he made sure that he had it. Money was no object. So people can look on at this and say, well, this is absurd. This man's talking like this, and yet he's got everything that any man could ever wish. They could even turn around and say, what right have you to say this about your life, that you hated it, you hated all your labour, and you're in a despair? What What sort of a statement is that? You don't have to worry about where your next meal's coming from. You don't need to worry about paying your servants. You can live it up. Many people would say, if only I could have a measure of what you've got, I'd be happy and I'd be satisfied with that. But actually, Solomon's not being ungrateful here. He's not rubbing his wealth and wisdom and opportunity and benefit and pleasure and experience into people's faces. He's actually being very generous. In the warning that he's giving in the book here to the people that he's writing to and to us, he's saying, look, I've had all of this, I've tasted of it, and it's done me no good. And I want you to learn from it. Now, today's sermon has no headings or points as such. If I was still training to be a preacher, I'd get a slap across the knuckles for that. But there's no headings. We're just going to go through what he says. And I want us to ensure again that we're not going to go away with the wrong message. Having things in life, being able to do things in life, the pleasures of life. And what we're going to look at today, success, they're not bad things in and of themselves. They can, in fact, be used for great good and the greater good. But it's what we do with them. It's where we place them on our level of importance, as we've said week in and week out. It's how we chase. It's how we prioritize and how we idolatrize these things. Because we do at times. Solomon was a privileged man. He knew it. And he mentioned it to us several times already. And he makes it all the more plainer here in the back end of chapter 2. He says this in verse 25. For who can eat and enjoy and have enjoyment more than I? He knew the benefits that he'd got. He knew the way that his life had turned out. He knew he could just dip his hands in his pockets. And it wasn't him bragging. He wasn't saying, well, look at me, look at me, look at me. I've had all these things. Who can enjoy life more than me? Not saying that. He's making a statement saying, look, you may not be like me. You may not be able to afford all of these things, but I've been very privileged. I've been able to do this. And I'm telling you, it's vanity. It's just chasing and grasping after the wind. He was more qualified than anybody to give us this warning. Status, money, houses, possessions, chariots, servants, women, fine food and drink. He'd done it all. He'd got the T-shirt, as we might sometimes say. He really had his cake and eaten it. But as he writes here, we can see that it's left a bitter taste in his mouth. This isn't somebody that's got the sweet luxury taste of that buttercream after you've just eaten the cake. This is somebody who seems as if he's tasted poison. And it's leaving a sour taste in his mouth. And we must recognize that he was in utter despair as we read in these last few verses of chapter 2. So what is success? I'd not even considered that before I came here tonight. I didn't even know how to define it. as I was driving here in the car. To some, it'll be this. To others, it'll be something else. What benchmark do we put on success? Is it to have a brand new Mercedes parked on the drive? Biggest house? Is it to get married and have children? But what is success? Well, this is what the dictionary tells us. Success is simply the accomplishment of an aim or a purpose. It's as simple as that. It still doesn't really give us anything to grab hold of, because we view success as something that's up here and not down here. But there are people every day that's having some sort of success. Their aims have been met. They've reached their goal. And they've claimed this thing that we're looking at today called success. And as we read through the rest of this chapter 2, really Solomon is talking to us about the success that he has had. And it's on that we're going to focus, and we're going to learn a lot from his errors. Firstly, he goes back to examining wisdom and folly again. We did that a few weeks ago, but he's looking at it in a different light here. He looked at it before in terms of experiencing these things and finding out that they were nothing but chasing after and grabbing after the wind. But now he turns it into a positive. He says that actually wisdom is better than folly. It's better to be wise than to be a fool. To be wise is to have light. Your eyes are in your head and you see what's happening. And you're able to move with it, and you're able to work with it, and you're able to accomplish with wisdom. Folly, on the other hand, is like somebody walking in the darkness. Can't see anything. And get nowhere. So there is a differentiation between these two things, wisdom and folly. Wisdom is better than folly. And most people, I would say, in their success, they would say it's been made through wise choices and wise living. But what does Solomon say about this? He looks at this and he says the same event happens to them all. Those who are wise, those who are living life in the light, and those who are fools, those who are just messing around and couldn't care less about exam grades, couldn't care less what job that they get, couldn't care less where the money comes from as long as they get it. They both come to the same end. And that's the grave. And he starts asking himself some questions. Why is it that I've been given all of this wisdom, and yet in reality all I can do is fill my pockets and feed my mouth and get more and more chariots and build more houses and pools, but I can't make any difference to anything else? Why? Why have I got this wisdom just to end up in the same place? That's his question. And he can't really answer it. He says again that even this wisdom, in its good use, in being able to succeed in the things that he turned his hands to, it's still vanity. And it's still chasing and grasping for the wind. And then as he comes to reflect, we hear him say these brutal remarks about his own life, bearing in mind the success that he's had. He hated all of his labour, for which he had toiled. Hated it. He despaired at the lack of assurance that any of this would bring to the satisfaction of life. He had toiled and used his wisdom. He'd built empires. He'd had huge success. And yet, what he tells us is when he departs from the world, all that he's worked for won't belong to him anymore. He knows that his pockets are empty when he passes through to the next life, that we take nothing with us, and that everything, the blood, sweat, and the tears, the hard work, the labour, is going to pass to another man. And the reality is that it may pass to somebody who just fritters it away and couldn't care less about it. We know what happened. We know that his fears actually came to pass. We can read about it in 1 Kings, chapters 12 to 14, but a short summary is that the kingdom was rent in two. His own kingdom. It was given to Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. That was Solomon's rebellious servant, and Solomon's own son Rehoboam. What happened? John MacArthur, in his commentary, says these very simple words: both of these squandered their opportunities. They took what their master and their servant had built up, and they destroyed the whole thing. And that's what Solomon said. I can't guarantee what's going to happen after my success. It's not necessarily going to roll over. Somebody else is going to pick it up. And it's not like Aaron taking over his dad's empire. These things are the realities to us. This was before Solomon's watershed moment in verses 24 to 26, and we're going to get there as we get to the end. But he says this: for what has man in all his labour, and for the striving of his heart, with which he has toiled under the sun? For all his days are sorrowful, and his work burdensome. Even in the night his heart takes no rest. This is also vanity. There's a stark realization here that life has been a toil. Even in his benefits, he's had to labour and work hard. And we know from reading in Genesis that that's the case, that when Adam and Eve fell, they were kicked out of the garden, and he said to them, in all of your days and in all of your labour, the ground is going to be cursed and you're going to have to work hard. And he's been doing that. It's kept him up at night, making sure that he's got enough to keep this thing going and going and going, to pass on to somebody else that may just fritter it away. And so he says, this is vanity. He had all the success that you can dream of. Vanity. Now I want to bring this right up to date. I want us to look at the world that we're living in 2025 in relation to success. And I want to share a few things with you that concern me, and that should concern us mainly for our children. From my position, this world, especially from the West, is driven by success in different ways, and we're going to have a look at that in a minute. We are being conditioned by a culture of success, and it's dangerous. We said that a little knowledge is dangerous, but this is even more dangerous when we start examining some of the things that people wouldn't even begin to think of when we're talking about success. In fact, the success that we crave for, or being conditioned to crave for, is actually based upon the 3 and 4 things that we've already looked at so far. Upon knowledge, upon wisdom, upon entertainment and pleasure, and on life itself. They're the things that man is trying to succeed in, and chasing and chasing and chasing every day and they're making a trap out there for our kids. Let's dwell for a few minutes on some of these things. Television. I mean, I watch barely anything now because there's nothing worth watching. And again, we're not saying that television has to be abandoned. But my observations over the years, and 20 years ago when my firstborn came, I was entrenched in this particular program. TV has been bombarded with talent programs over the last 20 years. Talent programs that offer huge success to just the everyday Joe Bloggs. I used to sit there on a Saturday night, drinking a glass of wine and having a couple of cans of beer, watching all these acts come on, myself really in awe of their voice, in awe of what they might be able to achieve, that prize money of a guaranteed recording and a £1 million prize. Now this has grown. There's so many things been put on TV that offer this type of thing to the general everyday public. We heard recently of the tragic death of Liam Payne, band member from One Direction who was on the X Factor. I mean, we won't go through the whole story, but it's horrific. And I bet his mum and dad now are sitting there thinking, I wish he'd never got on that program. Why did he go on it? Chasing after worldly success. And it's been promoted. Stardom life has become normalized to a degree that where now lots of people are chasing it. And we're going to move on to another one. We were talking about this morning. YouTube. Stars from home. Stars from your own living room. Sitting there making post after post after post. Multitudes of YouTubers now are making thousands of pounds off of content that really is just, well, to be frank, it's mind-numbingly stupid. And yet it's being promoted. People flock and watch it. I have to keep a watch on what Logan's watching at home. It's there in front of you all of the time. Weird and strange things, and yet you're looking down in the bottom corner of the thousands upon thousands of hits that these things have had, all the time lining the pockets of these people. I remember when Jamie was about 6, FIFA had come out and there was lots of YouTubers doing FIFA YouTube videos, and he wanted one. But it's got worse since then. The drive to be a star, success is unbelievably common. Another one, TikTok. Influencers and content creators. The same as what we've just been talking about with YouTube. They sit there making these things, post them up there. And there's people that are millionaires from this. It's nonsense. And it's giving our kids a false sense of reality. It's giving our kids a craving for something that actually turns into something that's evil and dangerous. Sport. Have you noticed how much change has occurred in sport? I remember back in the 80s when I used to sit and watch football, and there weren't the fame and the fortune then that there is now. Ronaldo and Messi and the like. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pound contracts per week. And on top of that, they're getting sponsorship, living a life of luxury, and they're the people that our kids look up to. And it's being promoted across every sport now, not just football, tennis, golf. And it's shaping the way that our children think, shaping the way they want to live. You know, when we was at school, some people did want to be a footballer because they liked football. Now comes with it the lifestyle, the stardom. But it's all coming down, friends. A whole lot of it. It's all just temporal, successful nonsense, and we need to guard our children and guard them very carefully. School. The reality now, and Tracy's worked in a school as a TA. Caroline, you're in school. School's not about kids anymore. It's about performance. It's about stats results and exam results that show how good the schools are, how good the teachers are, how good the head teacher is. That you might get an award for being the best head teacher in Nottinghamshire. Well, we're in Derbyshire, aren't we? In Derbyshire. That's all it's about. There's very, very few and far between now where you're getting the care and attention one-on-one with a child like it used to be when I was at school. It's been turned into nothing more than a success churning machine where they're more interested in those that are academically good. Those that are failing, we'll push them onto a TA. Get them out of the way. They're not bothered because school has become success-based. What about work? Well, there are two current statuses for work, and this gets a little bit more personal. Some of us work to live. We'll go out and we'll earn a crust because we've got to. We've got bills to pay. We've got a family to feed. Nothing in this life is free. And so we have to go out and earn a living and do some sort of work in order to make ends meet. Financial things arise. Most bills are rising as we speak now. We've got the gas and electric going up again in April. And so things are getting tougher. People are finding it more of a struggle, and it's leading to higher levels of borrowing. There's more debt. And in effect, we see the same type of despair that Solomon is facing in all of his wealth, but in the opposite direction. People are being crippled. And at the same time, they're having benefits taken off of them. Winter fuel payments cut. One part of work. But some live to work. Me and Tracy went to a spa day, don't laugh, on Friday. Tracy bought it me for my 50th birthday. Lovely, absolutely lovely afternoon. Massage, room, saunas, you name it. I was sitting listening to a guy in one of the saunas talking to his friend, and all these men. I had to walk around in a robe because these men were walking around like this. I wore a robe all the time. These two guys sat up at the top in the sauna talking about their everyday life, and he says, I won't use the language that he used. I'm only allowed to work 14 days straight. Oh, you what? I need a break after 3 days, never mind 14. In other words, what he wanted to keep working and working and working so he could spend and live this lifestyle, this pumped up gym member, golden tan, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, women magnet. He wanted that lifestyle. He wanted to be out every Saturday. He wanted to be on holidays abroad all of the time. That's what he was chasing after, so he was living for work. Now that's a bit of an extreme example, but we can be like that. We can have those things in our life where we're working to have the benefits of it to such a degree that it's filling our eyes and our minds all the time. Or it's a chasing to climb the ladder. And there's nothing wrong with promotion. But when that is our sole aim in life, it's wrong. And there are some people who don't get to church because their work governs their lives. And they like it like that. And it's wrong. But to them that will be a success. So let's move from work to humanity. Success is measured these days on the basis of equality. No one should be offended. Everyone should be able to do and be pretty much whatever they want, as long as it's within the boundaries of the law. So if people can die when they want, we've been successful. If people can be what gender they want with no opposition, we're doing all right. Success. If people can be an animal if they want, thumbs up. Success. Even go as far as being a tree if you want. Success. If we can be addressed in the terms that we want to be addressed with, those little pronouns at the bottom of the emails, if all society is in agreement with all of this, and we're all living as one big genderfied family, success. If we can end the life of a baby when we want to, success. If we can muzzle any opposition to these things, success. That's where we are in the state of our humanity. And that's being nice. If we see all these things in life, we've been successful. That's what the word is telling us. And if we shut down Christianity, we'll be even more successful. Coming against it left, right, and centre. So until all these things are sorted out in these people's minds, then they are happy to oppose anybody who has any opposing ideas. That would make for success as well. I mean, we said last time the stupidity of arresting an old lady for having a placard outside an abortion centre that says, if you want to, you can talk to me. And those oppositions, that type of living, is a success in this world's eyes. Equality and diversity rules the day. Now, this is the world that we live in. And it, in my eyes, I mean, bar a miracle from God, it's only going to get worse. And let's pray that he does do something about it. It's not us that we need to worry about. You know, the youngest he is here, and at 18, 19, he's got to worry. The rest of us are at the back end of our lives. It's our children that are growing up in this success-driven world in all of these different areas that we've been talking about. Only last week we heard of a nurse who had been disciplined for using the word Mr. on the telephone to a doctor because the prisoner patient wanted to identify as a transgender woman. I get baffled every week that I open the emails and the newspaper. So do we get left in this same despair that Solomon finds himself here? We could, couldn't we? We could call it quits at that. We could go home tonight and we could hit the bottle and drown our sorrows and be in such despair and think, what's life all about? But real success for us and for anyone else is under Christ. 3 things I want us to finish with, as Solomon has a watershed moment in verse 24. Life can be enjoyed in all things within reason, if they're enjoyed within context of a godly centered life. We said right at the very start, we said last week, that all these things are not bad in and of themselves. And Solomon, he wakes up here. He says in verse 24, nothing is better for a man than that he should eat and drink and that his soul should enjoy good in his labour. That sounds a bit of a contradiction to the way he's been talking. But this is his reasoning for it. This also I saw was from the hand of God. We should enjoy the things that we've got. We can enjoy the things that we've got. But under God, do all things unto the Lord, Paul says. He knew how to live a life with plenty. He knew how to live a life with nothing. He knew how to go to sleep in a king-side 4-poster bed, and he knew how to sleep in the gutters. And he did everything unto the Lord, and he experienced everything unto the Lord. And we can be the same. We mustn't be frightened of having those things, as long as they don't control us, and as long as we realize that actually these are the things that God has given us to enjoy and to share. That's the first application. The second thing is this, that the sinner or the wicked one has been given over to the work of gathering and collecting. Solomon writes in verse 26, for God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy to a man who is good in his sight, but to the sinner he gives the work of gathering and collecting. Now, what does this mean? Well, if we go to Romans chapter 1, verse 24, it tells us that God, therefore, has given them up. He's given them over to whatever it is that their hearts and their minds chase after. In the context, it's more about sexual sin. But in reality, it's talking about everything that we've been thinking about over the last few weeks. People are given over to it by God. They're allowed to go down that pathway and keep heaping upon themselves pleasure and luxury outside of God. But what does it lead to? It leads to uncleanliness. It leads to a lust of the heart. And it leads to a dishonour of their bodies. Judgment will fall upon the wicked. It will fall upon the wicked world who will have their end in all types of success. All those people that are grasping and grabbing and living the type of life that we've spoken about over the weeks, that will be their end in the end. Something that we will never be able to understand, and in God's pleasure and goodwill for our lives, something that we'll never have to experience. Separation from him, judgment from him, based upon the success of their life in these areas and their disobedience towards God. We read it this morning from Psalm 1, verses 5 and 6. The ungodly will not stand in the judgment, nor the sinners in the congregation of the righteous, for the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the godly will perish. The ungodly will perish. The psalmist is saying the same thing as Solomon here, that the wicked, you read it in the Psalms, why is it that the wicked prosper? They're given over. They may experience all these things in life, but they're gathering it all, and in the end, it'll be taken off of them, and it's given to the righteous, not in terms of materialistic things, but they have eternal blessing. These people have nothing but eternal damnation. The final thing, Solomon has established that everyone had been given their lot by God. We don't always like that. That comes with a bit of a challenge, because our lot isn't always great in life. We may not be blessed like Solomon, and the same as we were talking about this morning, really, we struggle. But that's our lot for the time being. Somebody else's lot might not be like that. But how do we quantify success in our life? That's the final question that I want us to ask us. That will determine how we look at our lot. If we're happy to walk this life and trust in God and live with what he has given us for the time being, then that is real success. If we're only happy when our lot is good and when our pockets are full, when our bellies are full, then that's temporal, worldly success. And it's not the thing that we should be chasing for. We must be happy with the lot that God has given us. We can fall into the same errors in chasing this success. And not just for ourselves. We can do it for our children. And that's where I want us to just home in on as we finish tonight. Let us examine our priorities with everything that we do for our children. Let us examine what's right and what's wrong for them in everything that we're doing for them. What is it that you want for your child, your grandchildren? Logan's in Watchorn School. He may not be getting the same benefits as some children in state school, but I'll tell you one thing. I'm glad he's there. I don't want him learning the way that this country is teaching kids. Not just about the nonsense side of stuff. We're talking to the couple that came this morning about the school the schools where they live. It's not particularly about that stuff. It's that they don't offer anything to do with God at all. No influence. What is it that we want for them? What is it that we want for them out of our work? Are we going to work our fingers to the bone trying to provide holidays and cars and houses? Or are we going to spend time loving and caring and building them up in the things of God? And that's not me telling you to go and throw your job in on the morning. It's what's driving us for our children. In terms of the things that they do. What is it that we want them to become? There's lots of parents out there that want their child to be the next Prime Minister, the next Ronaldo. I don't want any of that for my child. Because all I see when I look at success out in this world is devastation, hurt, and death. We must be a people who listen to what Solomon's saying in these last few verses when he wakes up. And he said, the things that we've got, we must be satisfied from the hands of God. And we must live unto him. Listen to Paul closing out to Timothy in his first letter. Now, godliness with contentment is great gain. We brought nothing into this world, and it is certain that we can carry nothing out. And having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. Those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and also many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, for which some men have strayed from their faith in their greediness, and they pierce themselves through with many sorrows. I want you to go home and read that over and over again. We need to be content in this world with godliness. That's our biggest gain. We should be happy with the clothes, with the food that God has given us, and we should not desire to be rich in any way whatsoever. Rich fall into temptation. It's a snare. Foolish and harmful lusts drown men in destruction and perdition. Some have strayed from their faith. Greediness has pierced them through with many sorrows. We cannot serve God and mammon, success. Can't do it. Not in the way that we've been talking about tonight. One has to overtake the other. We want it to be the former, not the latter. God must be our all. And as we finish each week, that's what Solomon tells us right at the end of the book. Our success, the thing that's not a vanity of vanities, the thing that's not grasping for the wind, is this: to fear God and keep his commandments, for this is man's all. Anything else is vanity of vanities. Amen.